Alright, I have to film this video over because I just filmed it and no. It didn't sound very good. I don't know. My voice is kind of stuffy and maybe I'm overreacting, but I didn't like it. So yeah. Sup, it's Sore, welcome back to my channel. Vars2 recently made a video about incomplete units and what makes them feel incomplete, specifically by holding each unit against the minimum criteria that they have to meet in order to fulfill the role, and making note of each unit's shortcomings. And I loved the analysis. I never looked at the characters in such a way, so it inspired me to go through every single unit in the game and criteria check them. For today's edition of Criteria Check, we'll be checking Yae Miko. Now, Yae Miko's intended role is sub DPS or main DPS. This is evident in her overall playstyle, contributing nothing more to the team than electro damage. No buffs, no res shreds, no healing, nothing supportive. Only offensive, which meets the standard for a main DPS. And since her skill allows her to apply electro damage while off field, she meets the standard for a sub DPS as well. Now that we know Yae Miko's intended roles, let's look at the criteria she has to meet to fulfill them. To fit the role of a main DPS, the unit has to have offensive abilities that can apply consistently high damage as fast as possible while requiring minimum field time. A versatile playstyle and synergy with support characters make for a truly outstanding main DPS. To fit the role of a sub DPS, the unit has to apply high off-field and oftentimes elemental damage to assist and improve the main DPS's performance in combat. High damage, low cooldowns, and consistent off-field damage make for the best sub DPS units. Now that we know the criteria she must meet, let's look at her kit and performance to see how she holds. To start, Yae Miko is an Electro Catalyst unit. With Electro being arguably the worst element in the game, and Catalyst being arguably the worst weapon type in the game, she's already got her cards stacked against her. This means that she'll have to perform twice as well to make up for her element and weapon type. Now, Miko's only contribution to a team is electro damage, which she can apply for long periods of time as her entire kit is based on doing electro damage. So far so good, she's living up to her roles. Her normal attacks do electro damage, which is to be expected from an electro catalyst user, and she has a standard stamina cost for her charge attacks, 50 stamina. Now, here's where Yae runs into her first issue. Her normal attacks don't have the best range, which forces what is supposed to be a ranged character to move closer to the opponent than other Catalyst users such as Yanfei and Ningguang. And her charged attack only makes things worse since it's super bad. Let's compare her charged attack to a few other Catalyst users for reference. Ningguang's charged attack has a slower startup than many other Catalyst users, but what she lacks in speed, she makes up for in damage with her Star Jade stacks. A level 1 C0 Ningguang with level 1 Apprentice's notes and no Star Jades hits for about 71 damage. Yanfei's charged attack is much faster than a lot of other Catalyst users, while doing more damage with each Scarlet Seal stack she has. Level 1 C0 Yanfei with a level 1 Apprentice's notes and no Scarlet Seal stacks hits for about 42 damage. Lisa's charged attack is pretty standard in speed and moves her back as she casts it, helping her keep her distance without sacrificing her range. A level 1 C0 Lisa with a level 1 Apprentice's notes hits for about 74 damage. Yae Miko's charged attack is pretty slow with no built-in stacks to buff its damage. A level 1 C0 Yae Miko with a level 1 Apprentice's notes hits for about 70 damage. Now at this point, she is third place amongst her peers in terms of damage, with her falling behind Ningguang by 1 damage and Lisa by 4. And to make matters worse, both Yanfei and Ningguang build stacks that increase their charged attack damage. A level 1 C0 Ningguang with a level 1 Apprentice's notes and 3 Star Jades hits for about 132 damage. A level 1 C0 Yanfei with a level 1 Apprentice's notes and 3 Scarlet Seals hits for about 106 damage. Between Ningguang's high damage and Yanfei's fast charge attacks, Miko is left in the dust with Lisa, which is an issue when Yae is a 5-star being outperformed by 4 stars. And you might say, but Ningguang and Yanfei have stacks that increase their charge attack damage while Yae doesn't, so of course they're going to do more damage. And while this is true, Ningguang's charge attack dishes out higher base numbers, and both Yanfei and Ningguang's charge attacks are faster than Yae Miko's. This means that they simply out DPS her by doing more damage faster, with the exception of Lisa of course, but that's not saying much. Check my last video analyzing Lisa's kit, I had a lot of fun with that one. So not only is her charge attack slow, it doesn't even circumvent this with damage. It's just slow and weak, which is the exact opposite of the criteria set for both main and sub DPS units. she's already fallen behind in fulfilling her roles. But let's look at her elemental skill. Her elemental skill, Yakan Evocation Sessho Sakura, allows her to place 3 different turrets on the field that periodically strike nearby enemies with lightning, dealing of course electro damage. This skill has 3 charges with a 4-second cooldown on each charge, with each turret lasting for 14 seconds. Each Sessho Sakura increases in level when placed next to other Sessho Sakura, meaning that optimally you'd want to place all 3 turrets at once. This is where we run into her first issue. Field time. It's possible to keep a 100% uptime on her turrets, however, DPS stands for damage per second, which essentially prioritizes doing as much damage as fast as possible. And with Yae Miko's normal attack not being the main source of her damage, her skill has to make up for this, which it doesn't. It takes too long to use all 3 charges of her skill, which you have to if you want to maximize her damage output, while forcing you to place them in triangle formation as well to again maximize the damage output. With each cast of her skill, she dashes in a certain direction and places a Sessho Sakura, all while having no iframes at all, which means that she's completely vulnerable while doing so. And Yae isn't the most tanky unit, so her vulnerability really hinders her performance and her survivability. Not to mention, the placement of the Sessho Sakura does no initial damage and only does damage when striking one opponent periodically. If I'm not mistaken, this makes this move the only DPS skill that doesn't do an instance of damage on cast. However, the damage she does is serviceable when built right and leveled up. The skill doesn't snapshot buffs, by the way, and a massive issue she faces is how this skill regenerates relatively no energy for Yae. When relying on herself for energy, it will take an eternity to get her burst up. Speaking of the which, her elemental burst Great Secret Art Tenko Kenshin will do a high instance of electro damage before consuming each Sessho Sakura on the field, dealing additional damage for each Sakura consumed. This is the bulk of her damage and DPS potential. However, to get her 90 energy cost burst up, you need to use her skill, and as we already discussed, it doesn't regenerate enough energy on its own. This means that you'll need to bring another electro unit to battery her. And since it takes so long to get her bursts up, this slows down the rate at which she can use her bursts, which subsequently and quite literally hurts her DPS potential. This isn't very optimal for a main or sub DPS obviously, so once again she's falling short. Her first passive talent resets the cooldowns of her Sessho Sakura when they're consumed by her burst. This now means that you'd have to place down 3 Sakura, use her burst, and then place 3 more. This takes up way too much time for a sub DPS, and as a main DPS, it takes up far more time than most other main DPS units. Surprise, surprise, she's falling short again. Her second passive talent increases her Sessho Sakura damage by 0.15% for every point of elemental mastery she has. This is more so copium repellent than anything actually useful to her kit, because you want a lot of attack percent, crit rate, crit damage, and energy recharge on her. Taking away from these stats to squeeze in some elemental mastery isn't worth it, but if you do get elemental mastery rolls on your artifacts, then, you know, it counts for something, in the very least. So now that we've worked through her talents, let's review the criteria Yae has to meet to fit her role. To fit the role of a main DPS, a unit has to have offensive abilities that can apply consistently high damage as fast as possible while requiring minimum field time. A versatile playstyle and synergy with support characters make for a truly outstanding main DPS. To fit the role of a sub DPS, a unit has to apply high off-field and oftentimes elemental damage to assist and improve the main DPS's performance in combat. High damage, low cooldowns, and consistent off-field damage make for the best sub-DPS units. As we just discussed, Yae Miko barely meets the criteria for either a main DPS or a sub-DPS, while underperforming in the criteria she does meet. This is an issue when 4 stars like Fischl can do exactly what she does, but sometimes better. And I think this is the main reason why Yae Miko doesn't see much playtime. She's always placed so low on tier lists. It's because she's supposed to, you know, she's designed to do a certain job, but she doesn't do that job very well. Or at least the job she's supposed to do, there are units who can do that job more consistently. And in a game like Genshin, I mean, it's arguable whether damage or consistency is better depending on who you are and depending on what you know, how you feel about it. Personally speaking, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, I feel like consistency, being able to do the job, you know, every time, as opposed to, you know, doing the job sometimes, but really hitting the mark when you do, you know, especially in places like Spiral Abyss, you don't have time for inconsistency. But anyways, as it stands, Yae Miko isn't a very solid unit and doesn't feel very good to play since she isn't built to play the way you're supposed to play her. But yeah, I'll leave all the sources and websites and whatnot that I use in the making of this video, in the comments down, not the comments, in the description down below, so you can, check my numbers. If I'm wrong, let me know. This is my first time doing calculations like this. That's why when I was doing, like, the damage numbers, I tried to strip everyone down to, like, you know, their base foundation when it came to, like, the catalyst charge attacks. You know, level 1, C0, apprentices notes, no stacks of anything that build damage, and taking that as the foundation. And on top of that, that's where, you know, weapons, levels, talent levels, artifacts and whatnot, buffs, stuff like that. You know, all that is added on, but the foundation where it all starts needs to be really grounded and secure. And Yae's is pretty shaky, which gives her just a shaky performance overall. So how could Yae Miko be improved? Well, I feel like there's a couple ways to go about it. We could either leave her pretty much exactly how she is now, except change her skill to regenerate lots of energy. Essentially make her a battery, which means that she could battery herself, which would help, you know, get her burst up. And the faster, you know, she can get her burst up, the more often she can use it, the more her DPS increases, which is what you want for a main or sub DPS. Or we could fix some of her performance issues, such as giving her skill iframes. That way, at least when Yae is on the field and you want to place a turret, you can skillfully place them while also, you know, regenerating your stamina. Maybe you're dodging a lot. Yae could help you regenerate your stamina, dodge attacks, whatnot. It's not like a 3-cast kind of situation, because as it stands, you know, having the ability to do all 3 separately is kind of unnecessary, since you want to use all 3 and put them in triangle formation to get the maximum damage output. So, you know, no one's gonna put, you know, one turret and quickly swap off the field. I mean, if that's all you have time for, sure, but you know what I mean? It's just, it's unnecessary. So make the whole move one thing. Maybe she dashes back and leaves all 3 in front of her. And another thing that could improve this is if they're not going to give her iframes or more energy recharge or turn it all into one cast, what they could do is make it so that each casting of her Sessho Sakura does an initial instance of damage. So while you may be vulnerable, at least you're doing damage with every tap. Every time you press E, you are doing electro damage. Maybe, you know how Shao slides through enemies and it does anemo damage? Maybe her skill, when she dashes, maybe it does a burst of electro damage around her. It doesn't have to be a huge AoE, but something. We just need something. That's it. But those are my ideas on how I would fix her, or how I feel she could be fixed. I could be wrong, but you know, this is where I'm coming from. Anyways, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, comment down below anything you would like. The comment section is yours. I'm trying to garner a community here because I've hit like 300 subscribers, and while that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, it's much more progress than I've ever had before, and I feel like now is the time I should really be settling in, finding my footing, you know, garnering a community, building up what I have going so far. And so if you have any ideas how I could go about that, please leave them in the comments below. I was thinking about a Discord server, but I'm not entirely sold on the idea. and I know that there's like the community posts on YouTube where I can post like polls and stuff, and we will be doing that. I want to get more people involved because, yeah, I just want to start interacting with the community, building a community, working this channel up to, just getting it off the ground. I'm pretty serious about this. I want to get somewhere with this. So yeah, there's that. If the audio sounds weird, I do have a new microphone. This is my first video I've recorded with it. I just got it yesterday, and I don't know, I sound I'm kind of stuffy today. I've been stuffy the last few days. I think my allergies are I don't know, my nasal passages have just been ruined. Not to mention I have nasal polyps anyway. If you don't know what that is, it's basically like a growth of nasal tissue, that blocks the inside of your nose. I have some good days where it's not much of an issue, but then there's some days where it's like today and I can't breathe through my nose at all. But yeah, TMI, none of that was necessary or relevant, no one asked. Yeah, I'll see you all in the next video.